Oh, okay. We're live and hearing ourselves echoing through the background. All right. How's everybody doing? We are here. I'm here somewhat. I'm not in perfectly good shape here. I apologize for the new location, but I'm in a bit of pain. So if I get a little slurry at points, understand it's a better life through pharmaceuticals right now while I'm recovering from surgery. So I apologize ahead of time for any verbal mishaps or anything else I might have. I definitely want to put the show out with Mark. I didn't do anything earlier. I've been resting all day. Excited to hear about what's going on. But before we get too deep into it, because my brain is completely fried, we have a word from a sponsor.
Oh, no, Hunley.
This video is being sponsored by HelloFresh. You've probably heard of them as they are America's #1 meal kit. They offer over 50 weekly options, giving an amazing amount of variety of recipes so you'll never get bored. They even have veggie, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to make it easy to stick to your goals. With HelloFresh, step-by-step recipes are super easy to follow, and pre-portioned ingredients help cut out the prep time. It's also up to 72% cheaper than dining at a restaurant, according to Zagat. To try HelloFresh, just click the link below and you'll get 17 free meals across 7 boxes, plus 3 surprise gifts. Thank you very much, and thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video.
And good news, apparently it's not 65% off, it's 70% off right now.
What?
I don't know if it's a holiday thing or what, but I wasn't going to reshoot an ad.
Wait a second. The whole product is 70% off?
For at least the first order.
Well, that's a big chunk.
I think so. So. It's a good time of year. Something to try.
Right.
Boy, everybody's having fun with my my life through pharmaceuticals. Hunley, before the stroke, he was so
he was vivacious. He was a busy man. We don't know what happened to him after that. He had a frozen face and
Bell's palsy.
Bell's palsy, very, very popular.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so I've got I have locals open in the background, so I can hopefully catch some questions that may be coming from there. I've got Rumble also open, and make sure we're playing on there. Hopefully we are. And we'll see what. Yep. Okay, everything looks to be live, and I already see super chats coming in. I understand, Mark, there was a document dump yesterday.
Oh, yeah? Wait. It should be today because today's Friday, Eric. Hold on. Before we get started, I got a message in a bottle from...
Oh, good.
Got some cleanup to do. We've got a bunch of different things today. This is from Heather Brewer, the spokesperson for the district attorney down in Santa Fe, to us regarding the Rust movie prosecution. I also reached out to the special prosecutor, Andrea Reeb. But this is from Heather Brewer. It says, thanks for reaching out. She writes these things as if we're on a picnic somewhere. She writes them like it's so upbeat, like I'm asking her for a movie review or something. Hey, how's it going? Anyway, it says, thanks for reaching out. The special prosecutor's investigation is well underway, Eric. And we expect an announcement on charges to come after the new year.
Oh, which one?
Well, I mean, after the new year could mean next October.
Well, I agree.
Just after the new year.
It could also be the next new year. I mean, at the rate we're going, we're a year plus in.
Right. So it has to be after the new year because today's like December 16th. I mean, unless it's going to be New Year's Eve. So it says we will keep you posted as the DA and special prosecutor plan and make their announcement. So they're planning and making their announcement together. But in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any further questions. All the best. Love, Heather.
Oh,
So
Mark,
that's
are you
weird.
gonna have a date?
What's that?
Yeah, you're gonna have a date too?
No, I don't know. I'm very rarely in Santa Fe, but it would be great to go down there for the trial. If there is, like we've discussed, it would be fun to go down there, and hopefully not in winter. I mean, it's freezing down there right now.
Yeah, it is.
So we got that. And then there was a document dump, which involved 13,000 documents, many of which were of no value, because the real takeaway story is that 5,000 documents of super importance were withheld, Eric.
I was gonna say how many are
5,000
okay.
that we wanted are the ones that are withheld. So I've gone through 1,000 documents so far. Last night I was up pretty late. I've got 12,000 more to go. So of the 1,000 I went through, this is the takeaway. This is kind of an editorial takeaway. And let me see if I can explain this. They've politicized the document dump. Most of these have nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination. They have to do with the government clamping down on Black activists, the Panthers, Black activists in Grenada, in Africa.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And just when you thought this couldn't be politicized, they've politicized the dump itself. These documents are from the mid-70s, 71, 72. There's documents about Black nationalists being harassed, stuff about the Cubans, but also stuff about other nationalities around the world being harassed by the government, let me put it that way, and internal documents. So they are CIA documents, but I quickly realized that this is a selective dump with a theme. And the theme is government harassment of minorities. If that's a takeaway so far, that's the takeaway. And I don't mean minorities here, because keep in mind, this is not FBI document dumps, Eric. This is international. So the CIA, right. So the CIA does not.
It's a woke dump. It's a woke dump.
It's a woke international dump from the 70s. Yeah. But getting to the Oswald stuff, which is right up front, oddly enough, in Mexico City, which is what they're, again, this is difficult to explain. What they're trying to do again, which is what he did in February when he selectively leaked a few of the documents, was to again link Oswald to the Soviets because of the current political climate. And as I said on Twitter yesterday, that dog's not going to hunt. So there are various documents in there by the CIA talking about Oswald going to the Cuban embassy in Mexico City and the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. And this is done intentionally. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 drafts of the same exact document, Eric, up front at the top of the dump. In other words, it's not by date. These are not organized by date. They're organized by what they want you to dig into. So with this particular document, and there's some other little ones that I'll read that are kind of interesting, tidbits having nothing to do with Oswald, but maybe of interest. This one, because I'll get to the Oswald one in a second. This is from a BBC One broadcast, a 50-minute program on the Kennedy assassination, March 6th, 1978, to show you how they never let go of the story. This show was called The Kennedy Cover-Up, a report on sensational new evidence of his death. Michael Cockerell's report claims to collate for the first time all the new evidence which has emerged of late, much of it in the wake of Watergate, Eric. So in other words, this is a Watergate era document, 1978 thing, and which has given new weight to the conspiracy theory rejected by the Warren Commission. 80% of Americans apparently do not accept the commission's findings. The chairman of the committee set up after Watergate to investigate the CIA and the FBI's work at the time of the assassination, one of the biggest cover-ups in the history of our country. This is from the BBC. Program included interviews with James Hosty, identified as an FBI agent in Dallas, William Godet, described as a former CIA operative, Antonio Veciana, characterized as a Cuban CIA operative. The point of this is how closely they monitor every TV show in the world about the subject. So this is a particular document out of London from 1978 in March. Okay. Now there's one here.
I have one question. Though,
yeah.
Before I completely forget.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I know you're going to tell me that it's Jefferson Morley, right? Or Mosley or something like that.
Yeah.
That he was right, that his guy came through and he got all that CIA material that he was talking about.
He got absolutely nothing. In fact, if you Google search.
You're shocking. No, say it isn't so.
If you Google search within the docs for the guy that he is, his white whale, who is George Joanides, who he's been after for 50 years. George Joanides, of course, being the CIA station chief out of Miami, who was assigned to be the interface between the House Assassinations Committee and the CIA, duping them and leading them astray. They said he was retired. He wasn't, blah, blah, blah. The point of the matter is, if you search for his name in the 13,000 documents, there's not one mention of his name. So Morley must be drinking heavily this morning. The poor guy.
It must be that we didn't call, because they told us at the conference to just call them.
Right.
Right.
When Eric and I were at the JFK conference, these Biden supporters, or one of them who was a lawyer who was on the board of this particular conference, said that we should call the White House because clearly they were going to release the documents of importance. And if we just called them nicely and asked for the documents, they would probably release them. Unlike their arch nemesis, the previous guy who released a lot of documents, but also retained the 5,000, according to a guy named Mike Pompeo, who pressured him enormously not to release the 5,000 in question regarding the assassination.
And by the way, the chat is going nuts. Yes, I did see the segment from Tucker, and I'm sure that Mark saw.
We're going to get to that in a few minutes. I need to set this up a little bit more clearly before we get to Tucker. I know you people are fascinated by Tucker. If you look at the February 2021 Tucker, probably the most demonstrative statement of a lone nut that has ever been on television. I can refer you to the actual episode where Tucker mockingly goes after conspiracy theorists in the Kennedy assassination, full-throated endorsement of the lone nut of Oswald being a Marxist revolutionary. The contrast is 180 degrees apart. Not that I don't welcome him coming over here to our side, but the shift is so enormous as to be questionable. There's no gradation of Tucker. He literally went from Oswald the lone nut to Oswald didn't do it overnight. And that always leads me to be a little bit suspect, having been on one side for so long on this issue, as most of us have. He went from Ben Shapiro to Oliver Stone in the span of 18 months. So we're going to get to that, however. So let me just get back to this stuff here. These are some cherry-picked docs that I found. This is out of Japan. Again, March 1978. Story is broken locally on page 4 of the Mainichi Shimbun, I guess it's a newspaper there, in the form of GG Press item based on reference to New York Times story. Headline, Oswald was in Japan as a CIA employee, President Kennedy's assassin, Oswald. Notes that CIA has denied having hired or trained Oswald. There was also an Associated Press story on the 30th of March in the Japanese Times. And the reason this is important is that the Japanese had uncovered that Oswald had been based at Atsugi, Japan as a air traffic radar guy, the same top secret base that had the U-2 spy plane based there when he was a Marine, and working as a air traffic or a guy in the control booth for the U-2 spy plane, and also later revealed that at Atsugi, we had placed nuclear weapons in the caves of Atsugi in Japan, which the Japanese were not happy about. That was revealed much later. But in this particular story, this was about Oswald being in Japan, working for the CIA as an air traffic guy in a black ops base, which was at Atsugi, Japan. Just so you know, it's not that he was at Love Field. This was a top secret CIA base with the U-2 spy plane. So that's in there. Okay. Then we got one here about some guy named E. Howard Hunt. It says inclusion of subject on domestic cover list is requested for the reason noted below. When notified that cover has been established, subject will be specifically authorized and instructed to conceal his agency affiliation. Then somebody wrote no objection, file available, and it's signed here. But the takeaway from me is not the memo on this from August 1962, Eric, by the way, August 29th, 1962. E. Howard Hunt asking for domestic cover, change his name to something else. And it's signed by a guy, chief of security, and his name is William F. Milligan. Eric, have you ever heard of the name Milligan?
Not William, but I've heard of a Chris Milligan.
Yeah, this is his dad. This is his dad signing off on E. Howard Hunt's security clearance. William F. Milligan, chief security, CIA. So we got that. This is just some cherry pick crap that was of interest to me, right? Then we've got this document here, which is I'm going to read some selected portions of it, and then we'll get into the Tucker thing. But this is from J.H. Witten. This is one of the Mexico City documents, which is their narrative of what happened. This is their final narrative. This has gone through a lot of different drafts. This is their final narrative, and it's in there about 8 times. And it's been released before, but it had some blacked out stuff in it. This is none of these documents are new, by the way. Some of them are unredacted, some of them are redacted, so some of them are final drafts. But this one here is a marked secret, and it's literally written like a novel. You know what I mean? So, and not only that, if you see the quality of it, this is new. See, when you look back at these documents from this era, they're smudged and they've been carboned a million times.
Sure.
This is brand new, my friend. Sorry, that dog's not going to hunt. But nevertheless, this is their narrative of what happened in Mexico City. And I'm going to read some selected highlights of it, and then I'll explain what I'm talking about. It says attached for your information, comment, and correction is the original unexpurgated version of the report on covering Oswald's stay in Mexico and including summaries of the telephone intercepts. This may be useful to your analysts who are processing the rest of the material and the people preparing the final report and writing this up. I have made certain comments and indulged in a certain amount of analysis because the naked facts seem to call for it. These thoughts are my own. Feel free to make your own analysis. Now, in general, all of this piece is overwritten. It's overwritten like it's a novel, Eric, and that's usually indicative of CIA bullshit. If it's not written in a staccato form, it means that
government stuff is boring and just very
right. But they
say this happened, go.
Right, but they have taken a good amount of time here to write this narrative, and the reason I mention this narrative is because I, different from Jefferson Morley, do not believe that Oswald was ever in Mexico City. And that's just my take on the assassination, simply because I've seen the FBI reports of him at the same date at the DMV in Dallas and his employment, the unemployment office in Austin, as I discussed with Jim DiEugenio in our interview, if you recall, we brought that up, Eric. So I have seen the FBI reports of employees in these various places at the same time he's supposed to be in Mexico City in September and October of 1963. The reason this is important is it is the Achilles heel of their entire assassination myth. If he's not there and they have created a phony Oswald, that means in September and October of 1963, 2 months before a random shooting of a government official, this man was being cut out in Mexico City to go to Havana and to get a visa at the embassy in Mexico City to go to Havana and then on to Moscow. Now, if that did not occur, if Oswald was not there, then these guys in September and October were laying the groundwork for that to occur as a myth, as a propaganda storyline. And that's why these documents are so important. which I'm going to read from, and then there's going to be an additional document I'm going to read from that. And we'll get to your friend Tucker and that crap at some point. But there's bigger fish to fry right now, people, is all I want to tell you. Okay, so we discover Lee Oswald in Mexico City. CIA did produce one very significant piece of information on Lee Oswald before he shot President Kennedy. So they're assuming he shot President Kennedy. Okay. October 1st, 1963, a Mexico City station intercepted a telephone call, Eric, from Lee Oswald made from someplace in Mexico City. I just got to stop right there. The fact that they don't know where the call came from within Mexico City, of course, is preposterous. And it's to the Soviet embassy there using his own name. So in other words, in this initial call, October 1st, 1963, he calls the Soviet embassy going, hey, it's Lee Harvey Oswald. What's going on? So we got to buy into that. Using his own name. Speaking broken Russian, keep in mind he spoke fluent Russian, so far to be confused by Marina Oswald in Russia as to being a Russian citizen. Okay? And nobody's ever denied that. But this particular Oswald, whoever he is, who identifies as Lee Harvey Oswald, spoke broken Russian. Using his true name, Oswald was talking to the embassy guard, who often answers the phone. Oswald said he had visited the embassy the previous Saturday, September 28th, 1963, which places him in Mexico City, not just October 1st, but the previous Saturday, September 28th, 1963, and spoken to a consul whose name he had forgotten and who promised to send a telegram to him, for him to Washington. He wanted to know if there was, quote, anything new. So Oswald, in their narrative, calls up and says, hey, anything new, you guys? It's me, Oswald. I'm in Mexico having some tacos. Right. So he says that the guard said asked if the consul was dark in skin tone, and that would lead to Kostikov. Now, it says here, Kostikov. Who's Kostikov? Kostikov was the head of Department 13 at the Mexico City Embassy. You say, well, Mark, what's Department 13? Department 13 was Assassinations Bureau for the KGB. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to link Oswald to this guy Kostikov, who is in the embassy as a counsel from Department 13 of the Soviets, KGB, the Assassination or Wet Bureau, as they called it back then. The guard checked with someone else. He then hung up. This piece of information was produced from a telephone tap center, Eric, which we operate jointly with the Office of the President of Mexico. It is highly secret and not known to Mexican security and law enforcement officials who have their own center. Our joint center produces great masses of telephone intercepts, which are transcribed and reviewed by our small staff in Mexico City. Now, the reason this lie is propagated is because it boxes out all Mexican intelligence. By saying that they have a special arrangement with simply the president of Mexico, one guy, that means all of Mexico's CIA, Mexican intelligence, Mexican FBI would know nothing of this. So
which is convenient, because then when you go to their records, say, "Whoa, there's no records from there."
Right.
Of course not.
Right.
No.
Okay, so our joint center produces a great deal. It's transcribed. By October 9th, the Oswald telephone conversation of October 1st had been transcribed. It took us 8 days. It was a long conversation. It was 5 minutes. And a summary of it cabled to Washington. The name Lee Oswald meant absolutely nothing special to our Mexico City station. Now, keep in mind, this is one of the most famous defectors in American history, going to the Soviets in 1959. Apparently means absolutely nothing to the Mexico City CIA station chief, who knows very well about the defection of a Marine to Russia in 1959. But at that point means nothing. They're laying the bullshit on here so heavy that it reeks. Okay. But in their report, they did judge him to be an American male, even though he's speaking Russian. The cabled report was received in Washington on October 9th and checked in our files, where it was immediately revealed that Lee Oswald was phoning the Soviet embassy in Mexico City, was probably the Lee Oswald who had defected to the Soviet Union in 1959 and returned in 1962. On October 10th, 1963, the day after the report from Mexico City, CIA headquarters sent out a cabled report about Oswald's phone call to the Soviet embassy. In other words, this is cover your ass, Eric. You know what I mean? Right. Sent a cable report about Lee Oswald's phone call to the Soviet embassy. The report went to the FBI, State Department, because Oswald was a U.S. citizen, and to the Navy Department because he was a former Marine. The cabled report to these agencies highlighted the likelihood that Lee Oswald mentioned was probably the former defector. A copy of this same cable was delivered by hand to the Immigration Naturalization Service, with which he had no, which we have no cable link. The same day, a long cable went to Mexico City, informing our station in the background of defector Lee Oswald, asking for new information. Okay. It's in its original report of October 9th, 1963, Mexico City had said it had a photograph, Eric, of an apparent American male leaving the Soviet embassy on October 1st, 1963, the day Oswald phoned there. A very sensitive operation in Mexico City provides us with secretly taking photographs of many, but not all the visitors, many, not all, right? At the Soviet embassy there, taken with a telephoto lens. So now I have to stop because as I talked with Jim DiEugenio and we discussed in Dallas, this is a pulse camera. This is not a guy clicking away at random cats.
Right.
Right. So it's electronic. So now they're claiming it only takes photos of certain people. And that
it's like a motion sensor camera in a sense, right?
Right. And there's multiple ones. There's 5 of them all over the embassy, and they're triggered by motion. Okay. So they have to say this because they're going to say something else. So bear with me here for a second. I'm sorry I'm reading this, but accordingly, we cabled the Navy Department on October 24th, 1963, asking for a photograph of Lee Oswald from his Marine Corps days so we could compare photos. So keep in mind, this is October 24th, 1963. They can't get a photo of Lee Oswald from the State Department, from Immigration, from the New York Times, from the Moscow Times, from any file on the earth. Okay, we had not received this photo by November 22nd, 1963. So it takes the CIA out of Mexico City a month to get a photo of Lee Harvey Oswald, even though they filed this on October 24th, 1963. We're supposed to believe this. Now, the reason they're lying about this because if they would have seen the photo of Lee Harvey Oswald compared to the photo that they took, they would have realized it's not the same guy. So they can't receive the photo, Eric, because that would mean, oh, wait a minute, that's not the guy we took the photo of. And maybe he was not here since we have no photo of Lee Harvey Oswald coming out of the embassy. Okay. But in any event, it turned out that the man photographed was not Oswald anyway. This is new. They added this. Let's show me the photo of Geb that we used in the Malcolm Wallace episode, Eric, because here's the photo of the guy that they photographed coming out of the embassy, which I could recommend you go to the Malcolm Wallace episode. This is a guy named Ralph Geb. Ralph Geb was a lineman who went to Woodrow Wilson High School and played with Malcolm Wallace on that football team. Later became, there's the guy coming out of the embassy. That's the guy that they claimed was Lee Harvey Oswald.
It looks just like him.
Looks just like him. They photographed him with a pulse camera because there was motion there. That guy is a guy named Ralph Geb, who was a pilot for Strategic Air Command flying nuclear bombers, who later became a part of the United States Air Force intelligence. His brother was CIA, also Geb, out of his neighborhood there where Malcolm Wallace came from. And that particular guy is the guy they photographed. That became a big problem for the CIA. It's Al Bundy's brother, Mel Bundy. That's right. So, okay. So that particular picture becomes a problem. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they believe that that guy is who they're claiming is Lee Harvey Oswald. So it goes on. Our Mexico City station very often produces information like this on U.S. citizens. This is more bullshit cover-up. Contacting Soviet bloc embassies in Mexico City. Frequently, the information we get is extremely incriminating, Eric. And on 1 or 2 occasions, we have even been able to apprehend and return to the USA American military personnel who are attempting to defect. They're claiming that this guy is attempting to defect. That's what they're saying here. In all such cases, our headquarters desk requests and obtains special permission from the deputy director of plans, blah, blah, blah. Okay. As of this writing, December 13th, 1963, I just want you to know when this was written, Eric. This is 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the assassination. We do not know what action the FBI and other agencies may have taken based on our report. We surmise that the FBI may have made local checks through Mexican authorities to see if Lee Oswald was actually in Mexico City October 1st. And in fact, they did. In fact, they did make those inquiries. Indeed, later investigation has confirmed, and this is them contradicting it now, and indeed, later investigation has confirmed all the details of his trip, where he stayed, and what he did. Okay? None of that is in the report. Where he stayed, what he did, where he lived, who he met is not in this report because it didn't happen. Okay. As we now know, Oswald left Mexico City on October 3rd and was no longer there when our report was put out. Since the telephone tap operation is a joint one with the Mexican president himself, the Mexicans also had the October 1st intercept on Lee Oswald, but it apparently slumbered. This is incredibly worded here. It apparently slumbered in their files until
the report slumbered.
The report slumbered. Yes, the report slumbered. This guy's a novelist. This is written, I think, by E. Howard Hunt or someone. November 22nd, 1963, when word of the shooting of President Kennedy reached the offices of our operating divisions and staffs on the afternoon of November 22nd, November 1963, transistor radios were turned on everywhere, Eric, to follow the tragedy. They turned them on everywhere. When the name of Oswald was heard, the effect was electric. and then it goes on and on and on. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is something that I'm now going to explain. They then pick up the woman, Sylvia Duran, who is the woman at the front desk of the Cuban embassy. She's a Mexican. She's a communist-leaning Mexican, cute little woman, very young. She's ordered by the CIA, Mexican authorities, to pick her up and interrogate her. She is brutally tortured by Mexican intelligence, brutally tortured. And in that torture, she comes to reveal that Oswald did come into the embassy and did ask for a visa. And she remembers him specifically because of the torture and the brutality that they treated her, this poor woman, right? And
so it's like the same guy who worked RFK with the witness.
Yes, yeah. But it was Mexican intelligence that did it. Sure. And they bruised her body. In fact, they arrested her again after they released her. They arrested her twice and tortured her harshly again because they needed somebody as a witness, Eric, to say that he came in the embassy. So who are you going to get? Soviet KGB guys? It had to be someone who was at the Cuban embassy who was a Mexican. So the Cuban government protested this because she worked for them. She was on their payroll as an employee of the embassy living nearby. She was married. They also tried to imply that she had sex with Oswald. They eventually got that story out. They didn't want that one. Then they tried to say he was paid $5,000 and took the money back to the United States. That story.
So both her and Judith Very Baker, or am I getting confused?
No. I'm saying that they tried different versions of the story that later disappeared, that Oswald was paid $5,000 by a witness who saw him with the money.
What I was thinking about while you're reading all this is you're having trouble getting them to release all the documents. But good news, they're just creating new ones.
Yeah. No, these have there's no smudges on these documents. These are clean. And you can go to the National Archives documents and look at other documents around 1962, 63, and see that they've been photostated, which was a phrase back then, using a photostat machine, 8 million times. So that carbon is smudgy, very smudgy, very difficult to read. But not these.
I'd like to see somebody look at the fonts. Because it would be funny if I would like somebody to look at the fonts.
Oh, yeah.
Because are those computer fonts?
Yeah. This might have been rewritten in the 90s, Eric. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that they did it last week. But in this storyline, what they're trying to do is a couple of things. One, establish the paper trail that Oswald was going to go to Havana and then on to Moscow after he killed the president. And then he didn't because he was killed. Okay. So the other storyline is that he was paid money by Castro through the Cuban embassy, and they had all of these different storylines that they could work, which they chose because of LBJ not to work, which brings us to this document. And this document is something you and I read on the air in another episode, and it's a conversation between a guy named J. Edgar Hoover and Lyndon Baines Johnson involving what I just read.
You mean the tape that has
the tape that's disappeared that has an 8-minute gap in it, right? So this is keep in mind, this is November 1963, the day of the assassination, and this is I take that back, the day after, 11/23/63, and this is a telephone conversation between a guy named J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, calling up periodically with updates to the new astonished, lucky man who became president of the United States that had all criminal charges disappear against him just hours before. Okay. He went from being a guy who was about to go to jail, if you could see our episodes, if you want to look at Malcolm Wallace's episodes, it's touched on there too, to a guy who becomes the most powerful man on the face of the earth. Okay. So this is J. Edgar Hoover saying to LBJ, he did carry some kind of package down there, which could have been the gun yesterday morning in the car. None of us can swear to that. But the important thing at the time is that the location of the purchase of the gun by a money order, apparently to Klein's Gun Company in Chicago, we were able to establish that last night. LBJ. Now, LBJ does not beat around the bush. He doesn't give a crap about that gun. There's a lot of guns in Texas. LBJ's got a one-track mind, bro. And he interrupts him and says, have you established any more about the visit to the Soviet embassy in Mexico in September? Now, why does he say that? Where the hell does that come from? Okay, J. Edgar Hoover. No, that's one angle that's very confusing, Mr. President, for this reason. We have up here the tape and the photograph, audio tape, and the photograph of the man who was at the Soviet embassy using Oswald's name. The picture and the tape do not correspond to this man's voice, Eric, nor to his appearance. Shocking. In other words, it appears that there is a second person who was at the Soviet embassy down there, Hunley. We do have a copy of a letter that was written by Oswald to the Soviet embassy here in Washington, which many believe was written by Ruth Paine, by the way, inquiring as well as complaining about harassment of his wife and the questioning of his wife by the FBI. Now, of course, this latter information, we process all mail that goes to the Soviet embassy, by the way. It's a very secret operation. No mail is delivered to the embassy without being examined and opened by us so that we knew what they would receive. Such a letter was sent to the embassy by this fellow Oswald, making a complaint about being harassed and being questioned. The case as it stands now, meaning the assassination, isn't strong enough to be able to get a conviction. Now, this is November 23rd, 1963, the slam dunk.
That was quick. That, you know, he just knows, hey, go check out that embassy in Mexico, because obviously that's where he was. I mean, good Lord.
Then there is the gun angle. I think we have a very, very close plan. Now, if we can identify this man, Eric, who is at the Mexican embassy, Ralph Gebb, if we can identify Ralph Gebb, the Soviet embassy in Mexico City, the embassy in Mexico City, this man would still have denied everything. He doesn't know anything about anything but the gun thing. Of course, it's a definite trend. LBJ, it definitely established that and then he interrupts himself. He goes, was that the same gun that killed the policeman? That was an entirely different gun. We also have that gun. Then J. Edgar Hoover said, I just wanted to let you know about the development, which I think is important. And then it goes on about the case. But what I wanted to read was Hoover has this phony photo of the guy at the embassy. The CIA sent him. And he also has the audio phone calls. Now, it's very easy to match the audio because who was on TV talking in the press conference? Lee Harvey Oswald. So they did a voice analysis. So he dismisses in 5 seconds the entire 35-page document by the CIA written December 12th. This is November 23rd. Now, these is private tapes of LBJ. They don't have access to this. This is private. This thing here is written December 12th by the CIA, knowing now that J. Edgar Hoover has outed them, that this dog won't hunt. And now we could get into Tucker Carlson. I just wanted to let you know that this was the main takeaway last night that I took out of the 13,000 page or 13,000. Some of these are one. Just some of these documents are 1-page cover pages of documents. So this thing happened to have some bulk to it. It was 30 pages long, and we're going to post this. I'm going to post this secret document for our locals members only on locals tonight or tomorrow, and these other documents too, Eric.
Cool.
That we could then look at on locals. Now, getting to last night's revelations on Tucker, it was quite astonishing. Locals.com for more exclusive content. It was quite astonishing to see Tucker go from Ben Shapiro to Oliver Stone. Literally, I mean, that's what he did. I mean, if you look back at this episode that he put up in February, 18 months ago, it was one of the most harshest TV episodes I've ever seen supporting the lone nut of Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone and being a Marxist revolutionary and being a communist and trying to blame the right wing for killing the president. And that dog doesn't hunt anymore. And people, including our audience, and we've seen this, you have seen it too, Eric, people who have been red-pilled about this assassination and who grew up thinking the CIA was on their side. We now know that not to be the case. I have not buckled. I have moved over politically, conservatively, but I have not buckled on the dangers of the CIA and the FBI since I was in high school. So that, we're seeing a lot of Democratic progressives who now have embraced the CIA, and you and I and people like...
Yes, because they work for them now.
Right.
I mean, it's just a matter, it's your force now. So you like them. You're good.
But there's guys who have never done that. People like Jimmy Dore, myself, Max Blumenthal, and many others, including Oliver Stone, who have never embraced the CIA and never will. And it's kind of interesting because, I hate to say this about Tucker. I mean, he, like Anderson Cooper, has connections to the CIA. And we're going to get into that in a separate episode, which we're going to do about his father, Dick Carlson, which is going to be in America's Untold. Oh, plot twist, Hunley. You didn't see that coming.
Well, we've already done, I knew we've done a CIA, so we're going to go ahead and continue.
We're going to go into Dick Carlson because this is like Fitzpatrick, who befriended Marina Oswald in Alabama at the school, and then later went to the Chicago Art Institute and all these different jobs. When we studied Fitzpatrick, the thing I pointed out in that episode was that they'll take a guy who has, these are guys who don't have the family depth connection. Remember I told you that how they like to have generational family connections? Sure. There's another type of guy, the guy who's literally an orphan. The guy who was, they like
the other ones who do the dirty work.
No, but they will take them and build them up into their own men, the ones that don't have a family historical or deep American connection going back multiple generations. They will take an orphan or somebody who has no parents or that type of group, which was done with the Muret family out of New Orleans, which is where Oswald's storyline comes from. In other words, his father died, his mother put him in an orphanage. You're going to see a similar story when we do the episode on Dick Carlson. This is going to blow your mind where Tucker's father came from and how he was involved in all these different things, running Voice of America, running the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, running all of these operations of the deep state, banks, running for mayor of San Diego. I mean, dude, it is unbelievable. And the reason I mention it is because I think, this is just my hunch, and we're going to get into it deeper. I didn't have time last night. I think that's Tucker's source for last night's show.
Oh, the deep source?
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense. It would also explain the flip, but he also said Jolly West, which people have pointed out in the chat, which is a significant flip. I mean, think of Ben Shapiro saying Jolly West.
It was absurd. First of all, it had nothing to do with anything. It had nothing to do with the storyline. You know what I mean? What did Jolly West have to do with that story last night?
Jack Ruby.
Right. Okay. So you got a document dump going on with 13,000 documents. We all know the Jolly West, which is going to be an upcoming episode in a couple of weeks of America's Untold Stories. We're going to get into the Jolly West story with Ruby and what he did there, and also with Patty Hearst and other stuff with Scientology that Jolly West was involved in, and MK Ultra. But Tucker throws this out there like a bone, you know, to some junkyard dogs, and no one knows who Jolly West is in his audience, except you and me and some of our followers here, Eric.
Sure.
But the point of the matter is, this guy must have gotten into the radar of someone that he really believes, Eric, and really trusts. Now, think about who that is. Think about who that is. It could be Pappy. It could be his Pappy.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Which is what I think. And look, I love Tucker. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the best things besides some other things we got going for us today. So, I mean, this is not an attack on Tucker. I'm glad he's overdoing this work. It's just, you know, how did he get from point A to point B in 18 months? I mean, it's amazing if you know, if this is the leap to where he is now, and there's going to be exposés by Tucker on this subject, he's going to red pill the entire conservative nation, right, Eric?
Possibly.
Right.
I mean, I don't know anymore.
No, but what I'm saying is, I mean, here is a guy who was Ben Shapiro on this issue 5 minutes ago.
Sure.
To make this change is so enormous as to create political and mental and psychological whiplash to a guy. And yet last night, people's minds were blown on Twitter because here was a guy saying that they dumped these documents. And invariably, he didn't have a chance to look at them, and neither did I at that point. But like I said, I you know, and Rob Morrow and some other guys went through them, and I'm sure Jefferson Morley, and what was missing, the 5,000 key documents that he went after Mike Pompeo last night, asked him to come on the show. Of course, Pompeo declined, and he said that Pompeo was the pressure valve on Trump. Now,
by the way, he not only said Pompeo declined, he said that Pompeo seldom declined, that Pompeo was always ready for a camera.
Not
so
on
he
this.
made a specific point of saying that no, Pompeo's always happy to come forward, and then all of a sudden last night he just didn't feel so comfortable.
Well, and then he threw Brennan under the bus, you know, who lives under the bus anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, he's in the exhaust.
Right. No, but I mean, John Brennan has done, you know, so much damage and weaponized the CIA. That's where I think it really goes off the rails and begin to become a tool of the left as opposed to the right, which used it as a tool to do their nefarious stuff in the 50s and 60s. You know what I mean? Not to absolve the CIA from the 50s, but nevertheless, these documents that came out yesterday, and I'm going to go through some more over the weekend, and, you know, maybe on Tuesday we can have some sort of an update. But I did want to give an update on the Hagman story.
Yes.
Right.
One more story you didn't tell.
Yeah. So, okay, when Hagman was a child, he had an African-American nanny. He was raised by his grandparents, and the nanny was named Billy Jones, Billy Jones. So I don't even know how to explain this. So when she put him to bed, she would give him bourbon and sugar, right? And he believed that this led to his alcoholism many years later. But after a while, he developed a tolerance to bourbon and sugar. And he's like 2 years old or a year old. So she would turn the pilot light off on the gas, and the gas fumes would knock him out and he'd fall asleep, and then she could do whatever she wanted to do. So the kid was knocked out by gas fumes. So the grandparents go to the movies one night and they come home, and lying on the floor, completely unconscious, are the nanny and Larry, completely knocked out. They had to call for the paramedics. They were both overcome by gas fumes, and she was fired, and Larry had to get a new nanny. But I just thought, boy, that's crazier than any kind of babysitting things I have ever had, you know. And I just wanted to put that back in the story because it was kind of a weird thing that Larry had told me.
Yeah, the modern version of that is Benadryl.
Right. I mean, there are different things. I mean, people do give their kids Valium and they do crazy crap. But I guess this was some country method of gassing them to sleep. You know, I mean, wow.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so we've got some
I don't know if you have any
tips,
questions or anything, or
yeah, we got tips from locals. We got a Rumble rant.
I just wanted to get that out. I'm sorry for the long reading. It's hard to do it any other way. Except
we have 2,100 people here. People wanted to know.
Okay. Like I said, we'll put
fantastic.
these docs up on locals. They can examine them. They're much longer. I don't want to read them all over the air here. It'd be a little boring, but
okay. I'm going to start with locals because I always want to give locals priority. Folks, consider checking it out. It really does help us out. Gets the word out. Wells Mortensen sent a $20 tip on locals. And just here, redistributing my pharma paycheck to those in acute need. Fast Search says a pack of 24 beers is $24 in 2019. So here you go, Hunley. Much love and heal fast.
wow.
Extending wishes for a fast recuperation to the person from locals chat with a ticker issue. Hi, Mark. Okay.
Oh, that is okay.
And there was a $5 one, but I'm not seeing it. Hold on. Oh, I can sort by that. I second this motion before it's buried in chat. And that question, can Mark explain his theory how this latest dock dump didn't pass last year's dump or any previous dumps? Nothing in here seems that important.
Right. So okay. So periodically they dump. I mean, last year was a certain amount, and the dump in February was cherry picked to highlight the situation with Russia. Again, if you remember the minimal dump that came out in February, it was again made headlines, typically in the Daily Mail, which this did again about Russia. Oswald linked to Soviet Union and killing Kennedy. In other words, they're using this as part of the ongoing political campaign against the Ukraine-Russian scenario. So they cherry-picked that in February, and they've done that again here. But they added in a bunch of other stuff about minorities being hassled around the world and hijacking planes and other stuff having nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination, by the way.
Well, could it also be, Mark, that they're going to keep holding back till the end of time?
Oh, yeah.
They got to put something out there. So
Yeah.
They deliberately say, okay, 13,000, that seems like a good number. That's a lot. Because
again,
look at this, 13,000. We're just, oh my God, we gave them so much.
Right. I don't know why these are covered under the JFK Records Act. They're not about the JFK assassination. There's documents in there that are very interesting about the MLK assassination, again, for political purposes. They're hunting Galt in England. They're going after the full strength of the CIA is trying to solve the MLK assassination. What does that have to do with the JFK Records Act? This is stuff years later, and also it gets into the RFK assassination in 1968, gets into 1978 with the House Assassinations Committee, which is relevant, but it's also just forms that they're trying to fill out to get interviews of CIA operatives. Again, not really important regarding JFK's assassination.
Fair enough. Now people are making fun of me in chat, and I get it. Yeah, I'm a kill guy in bull meds.
That's funny. There's no mention of Kilgallen either in these documents. By the way, I Googled that too. So there's nothing in there about that.
All right. Let me see. I've got a happy Friday. Thank you. From Bogadari, $20. I appreciate that. And I have a question though, before we get into it.
Sure.
When's the next dump?
There is no next dump. I mean, unless that $5,000 goes 5,000 documents, the proceeding now is to go to court to get the rest of the documents. So we'll see what happens now with the rest.
So they didn't just kick the
these
can
are all,
like,
keep in mind,
this thing.
These are all violations of law. Every time they don't release the remaining documents, it's a violation of the JFK Records Act. So it's just a question of incremental violation. If Morley, and I'm assuming Morley's going to file a lawsuit, which he's done before, rightfully so, about the 5,000, and I'm sure he filed on Monday if he hasn't filed today, you know.
Okay. So maybe we'll see what 500 before we die.
Right, but I'm saying what I said to you a year ago when we started to do this, the reason the bottom of the barrel is Mexico City is because it's the Achilles heel of the assassination. It's not a coincidence that you're seeing stuff about Mexico City in this particular case to try to frame the image of Russia being involved. But on the flip side, it's also because it reveals the Achilles heel of their plot. If Oswald is in Mexico City in September and October, that's obviously part of the plot. And if he's not, they're framing him in September and October, which is
so they knew ahead of time. So it had to be a plot.
Right.
Duh.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's my theory. And that's been my theory for over 25 years. And whether you believe he was there or not, there are FBI reports that he was not. And that's just a fact, my friend. And you could take that to the bank.
All right. Well, Cross Stuff has given us $5. Thank you very much. And is also a member of the channel.
Is that true?
It is.
How about this guy, Dr. Evil?
Dr. Evil, $20.
Dude, this guy's up all night with a machine gun watching every episode. Wow. Yeah, I love this guy. Yeah, great. That's great.
Thank you.
We'll have to make more to keep him going.
We're working on it. Let me see. Have you heard the good word of our Lord and Savior Council on Future Conflicts?
Is that a real organization or what?
I don't even know. I'm not sure. Oh, we got a Kiwi here. It looks like.
Oh, wow.
John of New Zealand.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. It ended up in Wellington City. Yeah, somebody pointed that out when we did the episode. Thanks, John. Yeah, I know. Somebody sent a photo of it. I don't know how it ended up down there, but, there used to be Al Capone's car went on a tour. Bonnie and Clyde's car went on a tour.
Oh, I've seen Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, you're right. No. All these cars go on a tour. It used to
be on the border. Like when you're driving between Barstow and Vegas, there was this border place. And the car was on display there.
Hold on for a second. One particular car ends up in Australia, and that's the Deathmobile of JFK that LBJ takes down there and is egged by anti-Vietnam War supporters from Australia. And that was the Deathmobile that he had renovated to drive around as a badge of honor. Could have gotten a brand new car, but he chose to renovate that one and drive it around the world.
I heard they kept using it through Nixon, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
It was still under warranty.
I hope so. Sparty Matt, our teacher, I already saw people have consistently demonized JFK assassination truth, making excuses or moving the goalposts on Tucker's segment. Like, oh, this isn't even a big deal.
Oh, it was a big
Everyone
deal.
already knows.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody like Rob Morrow put out a post that he was stunned that this went out to half the country last night. I mean, you're talking about the highest rated cable news channel. He wants to go after what's her name now, Rachel Maddow, and he was calling it that Tucker got woke. He was using Rob Morrow said Tucker got woke last night, and he wants us to all email Rachel Maddow so the two left and right forces could join in this one meeting of the minds, which is pretty funny.
That'd be quite.
Because I think Maddow is also saying the CIA did it, is why he was doing that.
You know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
Whatever. Next, we'll have Oberman jumping in. Michael Hebner, $4.99 super sticker. Thank you.
Son of Richie Hebner, the third baseman for the Pirates, who became a gravedigger in the offseason. I'm guessing, but the Hebner's a Pittsburgh name.
Adam Child, I freaking love you guys. You make me laugh while dishing out information. Hopefully Tucker and Jack Sobiak reach out to us all. We're waiting.
Yeah, it looks like Tucker's people may be watching our shows because there was a lot of beats in that story that seemed quite familiar to me, and I hope so.
That would be cool.
I hope so.
If you're watching now, please subscribe and tell a friend.
I got no beef with your dad. I'll just say that right now. I'm just, just covering the news fairly. His father was a gossip columnist for Luella Parsons in Hollywood back in the old days, in the early 60s, late 50s, among other crazy jobs the guy had. Fascinating dude, by the way.
Cool. Justin Moore, thanks for the stories, entertainment, and deeply layered and nuanced history. Hope my wrist is healing up. I hope so too. It's underway.
Yeah, these are complicated stories, folks. It's just not so easy to tell these stories like other stories because it involves documentation and leaks and different kinds of things like this. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, when baby Gerald, I've been obsessively watching all your AUS vids since you popped into my feed. Thanks to the algos. Occasionally, the algos are good. Just wanted to say thanks for making my workday enjoyable. Awesome. And I understand a lot of people watch these more than once, which I kind of think they have to keep up with all the facts.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes
you're a fire host sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes the other episodes reinforce the other episodes, you know, I mean, so. And who knows what order they're watching them in, too. I mean, they're kind of designed so you could watch them in any order. It doesn't really, there's not a one after another dated. I mean, the LBJ stuffs, they're all perennial, you know.
True. New member, Fire Pixie. Thank you. Justin Morgan. Nothing jolly about West. Just ask the elephant.
Oh, Tusco. Yeah. Tusco took too much acid. We're going to get into that in the Jolly West episode. And yeah, that's, I guess acid can
That one's going to get huge. That'll be a huge episode.
Excited, Hunley, aren't you? Hunley's into that. Yeah,
that's right. Hey, well, look at Mac Wallace has been going bonkers.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't think Mac Wallace would go that far. But yeah, we got a bunch of other guys, you know, that we're going to do peripheral characters on. So it's going to take a while.
All right, Spotty Matt.
I've gone from Lone Nutter to JFK Truth in 18 months. Okay, well, maybe Tucker watched also. Yeah, I mean, who knows?
I got a really nice email I forwarded to you actually about somebody who spent their whole life in the military and everything else and didn't believe it and is really having to take a second look. And I appreciate it. I don't want to, you know, mock anybody because the narrative has been Lone Nutter forever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everywhere you look, that's all you see.
Well, except the House Assassinations Committee in 1978, as Tucker pointed out, declared that there was a conspiracy to kill the president. So you could take the Warren Commission if you want, or you could take the later 1978 House Assassinations Committee verdict, which had much more access to documents, much less influenced by intelligence services, and they said it was a conspiracy. So,
but he also said conspiracy. They didn't go so far as to say what happened. Just
right,
it's a conspiracy.
Right, but that's better than the Warren Commission. I mean, you know.
Oh, for sure. Well, the Warren Commission was the conspiracy.
Right. Well, that was
half of it.
The Warren Commission is not really an investigative body. It's a framing commission. It's a framing device to create a narrative. It's a misnomer that it's any kind of investigation. But the House Assassination Committee was.
Yeah. No.
I mean, Lopez went to Mexico City as one of the investigators. I mean, people did go places and investigate.
All right, UPenn, Connecticut, $10. Thank you very much. And let me jump to locals and see if we've got any.
You got any of those crazy names from over there on Rumble?
I got Krabby T. Girth.
That's
crazy enough.
That's my favorite name.
That's my favorite. Rolf Epp. So Rolf Epp is saying, fascinating, Captain. You two are indispensable tools for knowledge and freedom. Knowledge and freedom, twice. Thanks for your work. And Krabby T. Girth, just wanted to let you both know that I am tight with Santa and put in a good word for both of you.
Oh,
I must say, when I mentioned Mark's name, he started shaking his head. What's that about?
Oh, Santa, yeah. Well, it's interesting. We're gonna on Tuesday, we're gonna get into Santa a little bit. So we're gonna do the cola wars of Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola brings back Santa as a weapon to fight Pepsi at one point in the cola wars, which we're going to get into on Tuesday.
Okay. On locals, USSR shopping cart wants to know, can you get a short script through Barnes connections to Tucker with the citations and annotations of certain things like the changing of the JFK parade route by CIA spook mayor, LBJ, signing EOs, etc. It sounds like you're saying use Barnes to get to Tucker to see if we can get an appearance.
I'll tell you something, Tucker's researchers are a lot smarter than I am, and they know how to get this material just as well as me. These guys are quite smart, and they're very good writers. They don't need me to do this.
Yeah, and if they want you, they'll find you.
Yeah.
Probably.
Like everybody else has, so, I mean, why not?
Oh, and Ziggy Shrug sent us a tip. Hello, Eric and Mark. Thank you both for a year full of wonderful content, laughs, tears, joys, and intrigue. And from the bottom of my heart, thanks for the opportunity to offer some AUS merch. It's been a great year, and I so much to you. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Hopefully, some people got some ornaments who are in here and like them. I think Ziggy does great stuff. Terry Cox on local said Tucker's dad as the new Deep Throat.
Well, it may. I'm going to look into it. It may very well be. He's certainly well connected. Let me put it that way. You know. Or he could put him in the right direction.
Bayou Nola, so Bayou, New Orleans, Louisiana. Mark, what do you know about Mark Shaw and his theories about JFK assassination?
Okay. Mark Shaw is the guy who wrote the thoroughly discredited book on Dorothy Kilgallen. So that's what I know.
All right. Well, Mortensen, knowing all too well the Soviet ways, a cul-de-sac with redcoats playing their own globe veracity presentation highlighting this.
Wait. I didn't understand that. What are you saying?
I'm trying to get through it here. It looks like it's commenting on another question.
Oh.
Question for Mark. Has any work been done in English on Soviet intelligence assessments of the JFK assassination, Oswald, etc.? Whom do they credit? I think some has been.
They came out and said it was a conspiracy. They originally came out, their theory was LBJ, according to KGB, so they were not far off. Nosenko defects, and Angleton interrogates Nosenko repeatedly until he almost dies in an attic in Washington, D.C., where he's captive for years by the CIA. Nosenko defected with information that Oswald had nothing to do with the assassination, and they did not want to hear that. And they kept him as a prisoner in this attic in D.C. For, I think, a period of a couple of years.
All right, Via 411 said, "Can Mark do a show on David Morales at some point?"
Can I do what?
A show on David Morales.
We can. I mean, it's kind of in the RFK stuff. There's not much on David Morales to do a whole show, unfortunately.
All right, 63 Telecaster from Rumble.
That's a great axe.
Love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, I've seen that guy before. Yeah, I think he's down in Austin or something. A Texas guy.
Oh, good choice of instrument. All right, Boris Kofevich. That's a good name. Santa came early for Mark, but he had a hole in his sack of goodies. Get well soon, Eric. Thank you. $9.99 from Pat M.
Have you commented on what Trump supposedly told the judge about the shocking report's unreleased contents? This dump here or the previous one?
I'm not sure.
Have you commented on what Trump supposedly told the judge about the report's unreleased content? I'm not sure, but there was there was some private thing between Trump and the judge or something about what was in there. I'm not really sure what that was, if that was ever revealed, and why he didn't release it. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at that storyline.
All right. Dan Hansen, thoughts on the fire at the NYPD evidence warehouse?
I don't know about that. That's, who knows what that is. It's a bunch of cars, actually. I mean, it's a car warehouse, unlike here where they destroyed all the evidence in the RFK case. New York City keeps entire warehouses of cars that were involved in crime. Here they destroyed the ceiling panels from the Ambassador Hotel, the strip between the doors that had bullets in it, and everything else. And the excuse by Gates, the chief of police, was that they didn't have room to store it, which is what I thought of when I saw that fire in New York.
Pasha, wait, it's already an hour in. We feel like we're just getting started.
Oh, okay. I forgot.
Yiddish word of the day
is kugel. I'm just going to go with kugel because for the holidays. I'm going to go with kugel, and you people at home could look up what kugel is. There's potato kugel. There's different kinds of kugel, but today's word, Pasha, is I have a friend who's in New York visiting, and I've been walking him through the menu of Barney Greengrass on 86th in Amsterdam to try to get them to eat the right foods. And I mentioned kugel. So today's word is kugel.
All right. And let's see. Feminism on trial.
Wow.
They know people think of Tucker as far right. They had Tucker move toward the truth to put anyone who says it wasn't Oswald in a far right category.
I don't know what the category is, but I don't know what category. I mean, again, it doesn't matter what Oswald's category is. I mean, he was pro-integration. He used to sit in the black section on the bus. When he was a kid, he got beaten up repeatedly for trying to.
I think they're trying to. I think what she's saying is that they're saying that Tucker's a conspiracy guy. So getting him to say that, oh, this is just another conspiracy-minded far-right whack job, MAGA, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know.
I don't know about that, but he's also pro-UFO. So, I mean, it started with the UFOs with Tucker, right? He took a lot of heat for the UFOs, and then that he was kind of vindicated by the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah. I'm not deep into the UFO part.
Right.
I know that Rich Barroso has seen one, and
what
I had a couple of members of the behavior panel.
We did an episode of
interview.
my encounter, remember, in the Sonora House episode, 1978.
That's right.
I didn't go on board the vessel, but I was in its presence.
Neither did Rich.
He didn't either, right?
No, he didn't.
One of the crazy is LBJ's guy buying. I guess. I mean, there's more crazy stuff than that. That's what that's. Eric and I were in the building. I brought it up to Eric. He bought it a year before. I mean, if the guy had owned it for 20 years, it would be less crazy than buying it that year. You know what I mean? If
that's the part is when everything's lining up. Like, let's just go with the building I just bought. Blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah, there was some planning that went into this.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Great holidays for you too.
Thoughts on the cop present at the RFK?
Eugene Thames.
Well, Robin, you got to see our episode on that, and that'll answer all your questions more than I can answer right now. We did a whole episode on that. It was a 22, by the way. But my locals is acting up, so I'm here off topic. Well, it's been done. I mean, killed a mess. I mean, there's entire Hollywood movies on Gary Webb, bro. I mean, come on. We're trying to do untold stories here. I mean, Gary Webb has been covered to death. Not that it's not an interesting story at all. I'm just saying what Eric and I are trying to focus on is stories that have not been told, not a greatest hits album or a jukebox, where you could plug in and hear your story.
Right. Or they've been told, but there's a whole nother.
Right. I mean, look what we did with Garfield. Nobody's ever accused Charles Guiteau of being part of a conspiracy before. That's an untold story that I think we added quite a bit of layers to, which is what I'm trying to do here.
Right. So I did want to put that in because somebody might come back and go, well, you're talking about JFK. Everybody knows that. That's like, yeah, but
I know.
Angles that are not covered.
Yeah. The stuff I'm talking about is pretty untold. Let me just put it that way.
Pasha again.
Ironically, Kugel, he's back. Tomorrow we're having our annual Swedish Norwegian Lunch Day. Stop by if you're in Minnesota. Yeah, let me just jump in
right there.
Drive to Minnesota. Do they have Kugel in Minnesota? I'm sure they do in Hibbing because Robert Zimmerman from Hibbing ate Kugel when he was growing up. A little tidbit of information there. Napolitano said Trump promised him full release. Judge Napolitano? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Trump promised a former judge named Napolitano full release, then freaked out and reneged. According to what we're hearing now is the enormous pressure put on him by Mike Pompeo to not release the 5,000. I don't know the contents of that pressure, so it's hard to throw Trump under the bus without knowing that Pompeo said it's going to be World War III. You know, I don't know what Pompeo said. It's hard to make a judgment based on not knowing what he said.
True. And let's see. It looks like the last one here. Any truth that Pete Licavoli? I'm not sure the name.
I don't
I
know
either
one of these names, so it's hard for me to comment on either one of those names.
Yeah, I'm definitely not familiar either. All right. Well, folks.
Well, I hope we answered some people's questions here for this Freeform Friday.
It's Freeform. And even though I'm in a different location.
Oh, it comes back to life.
My emotional support animal who's helping me recover. It's great for surgeries and kids.
Right.
Christmas.
Right.
So everybody check it out. There's a merch link below.
Right.
Somebody saying Mark hates the dog. He might. Mark likes.
You know what? I love that bear. I got to buy another couple of bears. I gave mine, the ones I had, away as gifts, or they were stolen. I can't really decide what happened here, but I got to order some more bears. And yeah, I used the duffel bag to go to the gym. There's an America's Untold Story small duffel bag. That's a great gym bag, by the way. Not to harp on it, but I just used it yesterday, and that's a great little gift, you know, for Christmas. You know, I don't know. Will you get this stuff in time, Eric? You think, or
I'm not sure. It's probably. I'd really recommend ordering like today.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure if it'll actually.
There might be some express way to order it. There might be some other levels of ordering that you can get it. Emo Animal.
No,
Eric is not totally woke. Eric is gone since he broke his wrist. He's gone completely emo.
That's it.
Yeah, he's listening to Elliott Smith music nonstop on a loop now.
I know, and I just break down and I just start crying at random points.
Yeah, I don't know what that's
and
about.
then calling Mark. Mark's like, Jesus. Oh, God, Eric's calling again.
Calling me, weeping. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
His wife is a real trooper, I'll tell you that much. You know.
She is.
Anyway, we're going to put the docs up on Locals. If you want to subscribe to Locals, it's like $5 a month, Eric, or 50 a year. I think that
great Christmas present. Somebody
Viva Barnes one is much more expensive than ours, but once you join one, you could go to the others, or no?
No.
Okay.
You can follow any of them for free.
Right.
And when you join, you're actually supporting us, and then things that are behind the paywall, you'll get access to. I do a group stream almost all Saturdays. I will not be doing it tomorrow. I'll be out of town, schlepping with a broken wrist in Richmond, but that's another story.
Right. On Tuesday, we're going to do the Cola Wars. So I'm really excited about this episode, Pepsi versus Coke. And it's not what you think it is. There's some darkness here. It's not as simple as Pepsi versus Coke. We're going to go all the way back to the 1800s and bring it up to the 1990s, even to today with Pepsi versus Coke. There's a lot of interesting material on these two corporations fighting each other over carbonated, flavored soda water. So you may want to tune in on Tuesday. It's a fun holiday episode is what I thought, leading into Christmas, and Hanukkah's on Monday. So if you have kugel, you could bring the kugel, you know, whatever.
Sounds good. And I've got really quickly one more Rumble rant that came in. Krabby T. Girth again.
Wow.
What do you think about the ATF wanting to destroy all the Fast and Furious guns? I don't know.
I don't know about that, but
I'm not familiar.
I don't think he promised when he saw him, and he hasn't seen him since. Wait, what is this? Something with Napolitano and Trump all the time now. He hasn't seen him since. Okay. Is Napolitano a real judge, or what's the deal? He's a retired.
Yeah, he's a judge.
Where is this guy a judge?
But he's a judge in Jersey.
Oh, okay. He's a traffic court judge, or what? What's the deal?
I don't know. I think he was like a judge.
Like
I don't follow all the judges.
Judge Pirro?
Judges stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like in a court.
The only judge I really like is Mike Judge, and that guy's a genius. So that's my favorite judge, is Mike Judge out of Texas.
Well, perfect. On that note, we'll see everybody Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, right.